first thing I asked you to do was to find the slope of the 4 lines. Let's just check and see how you did. Everybody should be able to count slope, right? So first slope, line 1, you should have gone up 1 over 3. How'd you do? Up 1 and over 3. What about the second line? Also, up 1 over 3. These two slopes are the same. When the slopes are the same, what do the lines look like? They're parallel. So these lines, if I'm asking you to find me the slope of a line that is parallel to a given line, I want you to pull out the slope of that line and your slope will be the same. Okay, so for example, let's stop right there. We'll come back to this side over here. Stop right there. And let's go through this just talking about parallel. Okay, number 1. Tell me the slope of a line parallel to this line. Okay, well, the slope of this line, are you all okay with this? That the slope is 3?
3 over 1.
3 over 1. So if the slope of that line is 3 over 1, what would the slope of a line parallel to that be?
3 over 1.
3 over 1. It would be the same. So a line parallel to that would be 3 over 1. Okay. What about this one? Just talking about parallel, right? So just sticking with parallel for now. What's the slope of this line?
Negative 3/4.
-3/4. So what would the slope of a line parallel to that one be? -3/4. Okay. I'm going to switch it around on you. You're like, I checked out because I knew what I was doing. No, pay attention again. Come back to us. What is the slope of this line? Don't say it out loud. It's a trick question. Can you see right now the slope of that line? No. Anytime you are given an equation in standard form, which is this one here, you have to solve it for y first. Okay, and then we'll be able to see the slope. Yes. Yeah. It's going to be 3 over something. So let's find out. So we're going to solve this for y. You don't know the slope unless you solve it for y. Okay? How do you solve it for y? How do you get rid of this x part? Ooh, that would be if we were wanting to graph it. You would do that. Put a 0 there. But if I just want to move it over here, how do you move something over? I'm going to either add or subtract. Since this one is positive, we're going to go minus. Let's go minus that 3x over to the other side. Now, are you actually going to subtract 3 from 11? No. Because 1's an x and 1 is not an x. So we're not actually subtracting. Okay, so here I have 8y. And then I'm going to put the x part first. And then I'm going to put the 11. When I put the 11 down, is it a positive 11 or a negative 11?
Positive.
It's positive, so I'm going to put plus 11. No. Still not solved for y. Y is not by itself. Divide by 8. Divide this side by 8. Divide this one by 8. Divide this one by 8. I can just right here stop. Now, normally we would rewrite it, right? We'd rewrite the final answer, but I can actually stop right here. Can you look at what I have there and tell me which number is the slope? -3 over 8. So if that line has a slope of -3 over 8, what would the slope of a parallel line have?
8 -3 over 8.
It'd be -3 over 8. Hang on, let me go back to that. So this right here, this is our slope. This -3 over 8, and it's negative because we had to subtract that over. Okay, so I made it negative when I moved it over to the other side. Okay, let's do one more of those. do this number 4. Okay, the x part, which is right here, it's not always going to be the first one. It's not always going to be the first thing. But I am going to either add or subtract that piece. So I'm going to subtract 5x. Okay, and then here's the part that we really have to be careful of. Some of us like to rush a little bit, right? We like to just get things done, right? If you do that for this, you're going to do a whole lot of work. You're going to drop a negative sign, and you're going to get 0 credit for the whole problem, okay? So take your time, because if you write negative and it's supposed to be positive, it doesn't count, right? So take your time. This -9, this -9, that negative sign has to come down with it. And if you forget it, it's going to change your answer. And if you change your answer's not right, and we won't get credit for it. So just take your time when you're solving. So I have a -5x, and that 15 is positive, so that's why I'm going to put the plus. And now I'm going to divide. So right here, had I forgot that negative in front of the 9, I would just divide by +9 instead of -9, which would change my answer. Okay, now I'll divide all 3 of these parts. Okay, can you see the slope there? Okay, I see the slope too, but when we write our actual answer for slope, are you going to write -5 over -9? Hopefully not. What's a negative divided by a negative? Positive. So what I want to write down as my answer is, even though I see my slope right here, I see it, it's the number in front of the x, I'm actually going to make sure to write down positive, because 2 negatives makes a positive. So when you write your answer over here, I'm going to write +5 over +9. I'm sorry that those blanks are so squished together. I realize the error of my ways. Okay?
And then there's all that space below.
I know, there's so much space for nothing. Sorry. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, let's turn the page. And then we're going to go back and do all of this with perpendicular as well. But we've already done all the hard work, so. Turn the page. Okay, this is the last part that we're going to do today. And then we'll go back and just kind of follow the same pattern, but with perpendicular instead of parallel, okay? Okay, what's the difference? This says to write an equation. If you're writing an equation, your final answer needs to be with an x and a y. Easiest way to do that is with this, right, from last week. So I'll write that on the top of the paper. That's what I would do. Could you do it in slope-intercept form? Yeah, but it would be way more work. So we're going to use this. When I do it in front of us and we do it all together, I'm going to use point-slope form. Okay, so that's what I need to have as my final answer. What are these doing over here? Come on, give me some more space. Just put my answers right in that middle space there, right? What was I thinking? Giving you those teeny tiny little blanks. Okay, so what I need is a point and a slope for point slope form, right? That's what I need. Here's my point. This is your x. This is your y number. And then what are you going to use as your slope? 5 over 3. Do you have a question? They would have the same slope. Yes, so far all we're doing is we're stealing the slope out of that line that I want to be parallel to, because it's the same slope. So we're stealing that out, but now we're going to write an equation. The difference is I do not want my line to have a y-intercept of 9. But what I do want is I want my line to go through this point. I want it to go through here, and I want it to be parallel to this slope. Well, parallel just means same slope. Just use the same slope. Okay, so the equation would start out with y minus Do you know what number would be next? Y minus 5. This one, right? Y minus 5. So my y number comes next, 5, equals, what slope am I using again? 5/3, parentheses, x minus, and then what's the x number that I was given? This -5. What happens when I put in a negative? Becomes a plus. Becomes a plus 5. Okay? Now we haven't done perpendicular yet, so let's just try that idea one more time. So I want to be parallel to this line, and I want to go through this point. Will the number -4 ever show up in any of your equations? No. This line happens to go through the y-intercept of 4. Will your line go through 4? No. So that number 4, don't let it confuse you. Don't let it steer you off track. It doesn't mean anything to us. Okay, so let's write the equation. Let's do a parallel. If you don't want to write the word parallel out, just so you know, this is the symbol for parallel. We're super creative when we come up with symbols in math. Okay, here we go. Y minus 5 is the y number, so we'll hit that. We'll put that 5 next. Equals -3/1. We're going to steal that slope because I want my slope to be the same as that one. So I'm going to steal that slope. You can put the over 1 if you want, but you don't have to. X minus 7. Okay. Let's stop there and let's talk perpendicular. How are you doing so far? Okay. Steal that slope out. Don't do anything different. Okay. If you only knew how to do parallel, by the way, you did everything correctly with parallel, but you knew nothing of perpendicular, you could actually get a 2. You get a 2 if you did 0 perpendiculars, but you have to get all of the parallels right. Okay, so the 4 questions, we've done 3 types. The 4th question we haven't done, we'll do that tomorrow, but the first 3 types, if you can do all of those parallel, but you can't do any perpendicular, you can still land yourself at a 2. Okay, but let's talk perpendicular because it's not that difficult. You all can do it. Okay, let me flip back. I know we're doing a little bit of flip-flop here, but let's flip back and let's talk about the slopes of these 2 lines. This picture is 2 perpendicular lines. Okay, what are the slopes? The slope of line 4, check your slopes, should have been up 1 over 4. How'd you do? This one has a slope of, I'm going to count it for you, down 4 over 1. This one's slope was down 4 over 1. What's the difference between those 2 slopes? The fractions are flipped, right? The fractions are flipped. Flipped. Okay, and then what else? Had a negative. One of them is going to have negative, and the other one is going to have positive. That's opposite signs. Opposite signs. And those have fancy words, just so you know. That's called an opposite reciprocal. And your other teachers past this year will use those words, just so you know. Yeah.
Couldn't you do a perpendicular without the negative?
Try it.
Because one could go up from like.
Draw it out for me, like on one of these papers, and then let me see. Okay, so if we're doing negative reciprocals, can you take this slope, flip it,